Kash Patel claims to uphold law and order, but when it came to the Epstein files and Trump's inner circle, his loyalty to power overshadowed his commitment to justice. What Patel refused to say under oath speaks volumes, revealing more than his actions ever could. His silence raises serious questions about his integrity and the principles he truly stands for. For more insights and in-depth breakdowns on this issue, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Stay tuned for more updates as we continue to shed light on the truth behind the headlines.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
It's not a complicated question. Does Donald Trump appear anywhere in the Epstein files?
I didn't say it was a complicated question. I just didn't hear you, so my apologies. We have released where President Trump's name's in the Epstein files and everybody else, and all credible information that we are legally allowed to release has been released.
All right, so let's go through that. You're referring to court orders that prohibit you from releasing grand jury testimony under Rule 6E. Is that what you're referring to when you say as the law allows?
That's a piece of it.
Really? What other evidence do those three court orders you cited prohibit from being released?
Information that was collected pursuant to those search warrants that were limited in fashion.
Wrong. That's okay. Not what the court order says, and that's not under 6E.
And you're talking, and I said that's 6E, and I said there was others, and I'm answering that there are sealed court order documents. There are protective orders.
They are unsealed as part of discovery given to Ghislaine Maxwell. They are no longer sealed.
That's just not true. We can argue about it all you want.
Okay, well, you agree that there are, so your testimony here is that the reason why you are not releasing all of the videos that you have acknowledged, there are so many, and that the FBI spent thousands of hours of reviewing, the photographs, all of the photographs that you have. You're saying that you're not releasing those because there's a court order requiring them to be sealed? Is that your testimony?
Never said that about the videos. On the totality of the videos, of the thousands of images that were seized pursuant to the search warrants executed at the time, the overwhelming majority of that video is pornographic material that was downloaded from the internet and child sexual abuse material. We will never release that.
Well, as you should not release the victims, but if there are videos that relate to others who Epstein trafficked to, such as maybe Prince Andrew, or photographs, that you have total control to release.
Yes, and if it exists...
And so why haven't you released it?
Why are you supposing that that is a fact when in fact it is false? Are you saying that...
You're saying that none of the videos relate to anything relevant to the Jeffrey Epstein trafficking ring?
Every single video that we have collected pursuant to the prior search warrants has been examined for the last 10 years. And every single video has been utilized for whatever prosecutions were able to be legally brought.
I'm not asking about prosecutions. I'm asking about why you aren't releasing the full Epstein files, including the names of people who were involved in the sex ring that you promised to do before you became FBI director.
I just told you I'm not going to release downloaded porn.
I'm not asking about that. Fine. I'm asking about all the other files.
What other videos? Tell me. Tell me.
That's what I'm asking.
Tell me.
You're saying there are no videos that would be relevant to anyone else involved in the Jeffrey Epstein sex ring.
Pursuant to Mr. Acosta's collection of information based on the search warrants. That's all we have in our possession.
And I'm asking you, that stuff.
That's all we got.
I'm not asking all you got. I'm asking you, in that stuff, there's nothing that's related to any other sex traffic, any other people engaged with Epstein in underage sex.
That's correct. To my knowledge, no.
Okay. Let's talk about the witness interviews. 302s of witness interviews. Those are not subject to the court order. Those are not subject to any fictional sealed order for a search warrant. Why aren't you releasing those with the redacted names of the victims?
We are releasing as much as legally allowed. That's why we went back to the courts.
How is that not legally allowed?
Sir, do you know how court orders work? Do you know how protective orders work?
Actually, Mr. Patel, I was a real prosecutor for 10 years. I know exactly how.
So I was a fake one?
And I want to understand what the court order prevents you from releasing witness statements that the FBI took.
You should know that as a real prosecutor, when the court hand downs a protective order and a motion to seal, the material is sealed unless that judge waives it. Your testimony here
is that all of those witness statements are under a court order, a protective order.
We are providing everything we can legally provide.
No, that's not my question. My question is, why are those witness statements that are not grand jury testimony, that if they were under a protective order are no longer under a protective order, why are they not being released?
How are they not under a protective order?
Why are you not going to the court like you did for the grand jury testimony to unseal those records?
The DOJ did go to the court.
No, not on those records. Why aren't you going? You just went on grand jury.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
You are hiding the Epstein files, Mr. Patel.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
You are part of the cover-up.
Can I respond?
You sure can.
Any allegations that I'm a part of a cover-up to protect child sexual trafficking and victims of human trafficking and sexual crimes is patently and categorically false in the work of my
So I hope you will talk to them when they have requested to speak with you. Because the victims have requested and you are not responding to them.
Consent request.
Gentleman's recognized.
So I've got 4 documents I'd like to introduce into the record. The first one is Jeffrey Epstein's 6 story played out for years in plain sight. And Acosta is quoted in here saying, I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone. The second document is entitled, What Epstein's Bodyguard Warned About His CIA Connections. The third document is from Fox Digital. It's titled, Epstein's Private Calendar Reveals Planned Meetings with Obama Admin Official CIA Chief. And the last document is Wall Street Journal article that highlights Ehud Barak's 36 meetings with Jeffrey Epstein. He was the former Prime Minister of Israel and head of military intelligence for Israel. It may have held that title when he met Epstein, and then, yes.
Without objection, the gentleman will hold for a second. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one UC request. This is Judge Engelmeyer's decision from August in U.S. versus Epstein, stating the government's 100,000 pages of Epstein files dwarfs the 70-odd pages of Epstein grand jury materials.
Without objection, the gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, I watched some of your Senate hearing yesterday when Senator Kennedy asked you, you've seen most of the files, who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these women to besides himself? You replied, according to the transcript, there is no credible information that he trafficked them to anyone else. You also said somewhere in the hearing and here today that the problem is that the case files are constrained by limited search warrants from 2006 to 2007 and that the non-prosecution agreement hamstrung future investigations. Those constraints only apply to Southern District of Florida. They do not apply to Southern District of New York, the location of the 2019 sex trafficking indictment, which produced many things, including a series of FD 302 documents. According to victims who cooperated with the FBI in that investigation, these documents in FBI possession, your possession, detail at least 20 men, including Mr. Jess Staley, CEO of Barclays Bank, who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims to, victims including minors, such as Virginia Roberts Giuffre, may she rest in peace. That list also includes at least 19 other individuals, one Hollywood producer worth a few $100 million, one royal prince, one high-profile individual in the music industry, one very prominent banker, one high-profile government official, one high-profile former politician, one owner of a car company in Italy, one rock star, one magician, at least 6 billionaires, including a billionaire from Canada. We know these people exist in the FBI files, the files that you control. I don't know exactly who they are, but the FBI does. Have you launched any investigations into any of these people, and have you seen these 302 documents?
Sir, I have asked my FBI agents to review the entirety of the Epstein files and bring forth any credible information, and we're working with Congress not only to divulge that information and produce it to you, but any investigations that arise from any credible investigation will be brought. There have been no new materials brought to me launching a new indictment.
So is the loophole here, or is it your assertion that these victims aren't credible, that the 302s maybe didn't produce credible statements that rise to a probable cause?
It's not my assertion, sir. It's the assertion of 2 different United States attorney's offices from 3 separate administrations who investigated those same materials in lifetime.
Are the 302 documents in the FBI's possession?
They reviewed all that, yes, sir.
And so have you reviewed those 302 documents where the victims name the people who victimized them?
If I personally know, but the FBI has.
So how can you sit here and in front of the Senate and say there are no names?
I said all
I named one today.
I said we are not in the practice at the Department of Justice FBI of releasing victims' names. That is not what we do. We are also not in the habit of releasing incredible information. That's not what we do. But multiple authorities have looked at the entirety of what we have.
Okay, I got to move on here. Were you present when the AG had the White House event when she released the binders to the social media influencers?
I was, yes.
So if you're willing to meet with social media influencers who stood to benefit from the sensational and sad stories of these victims, will you meet with the victims as well?
The FBI will meet with anyone who has new information.
Will you personally meet with them?
The FBI and the professionals who are handling the cases will.
Were you instructed that it was important to release the documents to the Oversight Committee on the day of my introduction of
The hearing we witnessed was far more than just a confrontation. It was a real-time civics lesson that demonstrated how evidence, law, and politics intersect when the public demands transparency and accountability. It was a moment when the public and lawmakers got a first-hand look at how powerful institutions like the FBI often balance legal concerns, political pressures, and moral obligations. Let's break down the significance of what transpired, as it was far more complex than what the headlines might have suggested. At the heart of the exchange was a very direct and concrete demand from a member of Congress. Show us the files, release the evidence you promised. This straightforward request should be met with clarity, but the responses we got were a troubling mixture of legal jargon, partial admissions, and outright evasions. This response is precisely what fosters suspicion among the public, and it's why this moment in time is so important. The public wants answers, but the way those answers are delivered or withheld matters deeply. To understand the issue more thoroughly, we need to break down the legal framework behind the claims made by the FBI. This is where much of the confusion lies, and where we can begin to see the gray areas that have fueled so much public skepticism. There are various types of material in the government's possession, and each category is governed by different legal rules. For example, search warrant returns, the items seized from a house, grand jury materials, witness interview reports, the FBI's 302s, and private estate records all fall under distinct rules for disclosure. Grand jury testimony is particularly protected by Rule 6, which ensures strict secrecy. Courts rarely unseal grand jury transcripts unless they find that the public interest outweighs the reasons for maintaining confidentiality. This is the legal justification the FBI repeatedly cited when it claimed it couldn't release certain documents. However, the issue is more complicated than that. Grand jury secrecy doesn't automatically cover other types of materials. For instance, witness interview reports or materials seized in a search warrant don't necessarily fall under the same protections. These documents, while sensitive, can be shared more freely as long as certain redactions are made to protect the identities and safety of victims. The core of the debate lies in why some documents have been withheld from public view, despite the fact that legal constraints don't automatically apply. Two primary structural issues stand out here, and a third political issue further complicates the situation. The first structural issue relates to the protective orders and sealed filings that were introduced at earlier stages of the investigation. These actions created legal constraints that subsequent investigators must navigate carefully. The second structural issue concerns the 2007 non-prosecution agreement, which restricted what earlier prosecutors could do and what subsequent investigators could rely upon. While these legal hurdles are certainly important, the political considerations play a much larger role in determining the final outcome. The public often sees legal arguments as explanations, but Congress views those same arguments as choices. It is up to the Department of Justice, DOJ, and the FBI director to decide how aggressively to pursue the unsealing of documents or to subpoena third parties, such as estates and private material holders. This is where the real decisions are made, and it is these decisions that Congress holds responsible. The disconnect between legal justifications and political decision-making is critical, as the public's expectations are shaped by what is or isn't being done to address the demands for transparency. A few recurring themes emerged during the hearing, and they are crucial for understanding the broader context of this issue. One of the main points of contention was the difference between an index and the actual files. The FBI claimed that it had released an index, which is essentially a table of contents that lists what documents exist. But an index isn't the same as releasing the underlying documents themselves. It shows what is available, but it doesn't provide the public with the full picture. For investigative and privacy reasons, agencies sometimes release indexes to demonstrate transparency while still protecting sensitive information. However, this raises the question, why stop at the index? Senators rightly pressed for the actual documents, as the index alone can seem like an empty promise of transparency without substance. Another critical aspect of the hearing was the issue of FD 302s, which are the FBI's formal interview summaries. These summaries can provide detailed accounts of victims' and witnesses' testimonies. Unlike grand jury transcripts, FD 302s are more easily disclosable, albeit with redactions to protect privacy. Senators challenged the FBI on why it wouldn't use legal channels to unseal these materials, redacting sensitive details as necessary. If the goal is transparency while safeguarding victims, it would seem reasonable to release these summaries with proper redactions. This led to the logical follow-up question. If it's legally permissible to release these documents, why hasn't the FBI gone to court to seek their unsealing? In addition, the hearing highlighted the role of seized materials, particularly from search warrants. Search warrants often include a variety of items like computers, photos, financial records, and digital evidence. Some of this material is undoubtedly sensitive, such as child sexual abuse content, which must never be released. But other non-pornographic items, like calendars, emails, flight logs, and ledger pages, could contain critical information that implicates third parties. If private estates or other holders of such material refuse to cooperate, the government can and does issue subpoenas to compel production. The claim made by the FBI that the estate is under no obligation to release this material is misleading. The reality is that subpoenas can and should be issued, and the DOJ should be actively pursuing these avenues. The credibility of the evidence itself became a central issue. Patel, the FBI director, repeatedly framed the situation as one of credibility, suggesting that multiple administrations' career prosecutors had determined that the materials available didn't constitute prosecutable evidence. While this may be technically true, it fails to answer the public's question about the contents of these materials. The line between not prosecutable and not releasable is fine, and the public is right to expect more than a blanket statement about credibility. When survivors claim they were ignored or when witnesses assert that they named names, the public reasonably expects a more detailed explanation that addresses the steps taken to verify the decisions that prevented further action. If the materials were not enough to press charges, the public wants to know whether other investigative methods, such as newer techniques or more aggressive litigation, could potentially alter the outcome. Congress also plays a key role in overseeing the FBI's actions. If Congress is dissatisfied with the FBI's explanations, it has several tools at its disposal. For one, it can issue subpoenas for the requested documents or demand that the Inspector General IG open an inquiry into the handling of the files. Additionally, Congress has the option to refer the matter to a court to unseal specific records. This is not mere theater, it is a matter of procedure. If the FBI and DOJ are unwilling to pursue litigation or disclose more information, Congress has the power to press them into action. One of the most profound aspects of the hearing was its focus on the human side of the issue, the survivors. It wasn't just about legal technicalities, it was about real people. Women who had been groomed and abused, waiting decades to have their voices heard. While redactions and privacy protections are often necessary, transparency is equally important. Survivors deserve to know that their stories are not being ignored. A credible path forward would involve releasing FD 302 summaries with redactions to protect privacy, publishing non-sensitive financial and travel records, and providing a clear public accounting of the legal obstacles preventing the release of further materials. The public needs to know what steps are being taken to address these challenges, and survivors deserve to see that their voices are being heard and their stories validated. As for what citizens can expect next, there are 3 key developments to watch. First, will Congress issue targeted subpoenas for specific sealed items and force a court battle to unseal them? Second, will the DOJ or an independent inspector general open a formal review of how the files were handled? And third, will the FBI move forward with issuing subpoenas to the estate and pursuing broader access to materials? These actions are the real tests of whether the FBI and DOJ will take concrete steps toward transparency. If you care about holding institutions accountable, there are tangible actions you can take. Push your representatives to demand the documents and support an IG review. Support independent journalism and survivor advocacy groups who are doing the difficult work of vetting and protecting sources. Insist that transparency be achieved in a way that protects victims while still exposing the institutional failures that have allowed these stories to remain hidden for so long. This hearing wasn't just a performance designed for TV. It was a pivotal moment to test whether institutions will hide behind legal technicalities or pursue real litigation to bring the truth into the light. The public deserves clear, actionable answers. What has been reviewed? What remains sealed? What legal steps have been taken to unseal these records? And who is willing to pursue them? Until these questions are answered plainly, suspicion will only grow, and public trust in these institutions will continue to erode. If you want to follow this story more closely, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for updates. We'll continue tracking filings, IG actions, and court motions, explaining what each step means for survivors and for the integrity of the rule of law. Share this video with someone who might think the headlines told the whole story, because the real story is only just beginning.